is from Miramap. Miramap is the association of AMAPs, and AMAP is how we say CSA in French, in France. Francois is a former farmer himself, and he's joining us
Just
to
a
share
mistake.
his
Not
experience.
a farmer.
Sorry?
Not a farmer, a consumer.
Yes, it says here you used to be a farmer. Okay, so you're joining us as a member of a local AMAP to share the experience of how PGS works in a smaller setting of one CSA. And then we have Gaëlle Bigler, who comes from the Swiss network, the Swiss-French CSA network. And she's going to talk to us about PGS in that context. The last person you see is Haraza Braga, my colleague here in Agroecopolis, who is the one that organized this whole webinar. So while I show you the next slide, I would just like to tell you some things about the logistics of today. Today, we're going to have a guided discussion that's going to last about 60 minutes. During that time, you will see that on the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a chat where you can post your comments. But we would like to ask you to hold your questions until the end of the session, because then we will have a Q&A for all our panelists. I hope everything is clear. If somebody needs to talk, they need to unmute their microphones. And if they want us to see them, they also have to share their video. Now, before I pass on to Fede and ask her to tell us what is PGS, explain in a few simple words what PGS is, I know that joining us today is a group of people in Athens. Athina Maria, if you are hearing this, please share your screen and just say a couple of words about where you are and who is watching us. Okay.
Yes. All right. Hello from Athens.
Share your video. Share your video, please. Turn on your camera.
It says that I cannot start a video because the host has stopped it. But I don't know.
Okay, then just 2 words about where you are and who is watching now in Athens.
Yeah.
Because Athina is not on her own. There's a group of people with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Here it is.
Okay.
The video works.
See you.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can maybe turn the camera around a bit.
I'm Alti. Here. Me. Phoebe. Hi.
Just 2 words
And,
very quickly
yeah, more people
about where you are and what is happening there.
Now we are in Athens, in the neighborhood of Kypseli, in the center, and we are in the municipal market where there are many interesting things happening. And today here it's hosted the Bostani community market, and we are very interested to learn about the different tools that can be useful for different kind of agriculture.
So you have with you many small producers who are very interested in what PGS is and what CSA is.
Yes, the producers are now outside and they are busy, but we hope that they join us later on, and for sure we'll let them know what happens.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we can pass the floor to Federica Varini from IFO, who can explain to us what is PGS. Federica, you can share your screen if you like. We can hear you.
Okay, hello everybody. So let me know if you can see. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
We see Jenny now.
Always Jenny. Now we see Christoph.
So let me check. Now, probably.
Okay, something's happening. I think you're on the right track, but we are still watching my face. Okay, that's it.
Now?
Yes.
Is something different? Good. Yes. Okay. So yeah, so you asked me to present PGS in 5 minutes.
That's a challenge, I know.
Challenging task, but I'm gonna try my best. And first of all, I just wanted to tell all the participants that we are currently working with Agroecopolis, with Gazap, Miramap, and other European organization on a project that is actually researching about synergies between PGS and CSA. So this is the big topic of our project. And we have developed a training module only on that. So yeah, we can then maybe discuss later on. You can get in touch with me for having more information about it. And yes, so what is PGS? I want to start with what is our definition of participatory guarantee systems. So we say that they are locally focused quality assurance systems that certify producers based on active participation of stakeholders, and that are built on a foundation of trust, social networks, and knowledge exchange. So basically, what does it mean, all of these? Already in this definition, you have many key elements, key hints of what these participatory guarantee systems are. So PGS are an alternative tool to assure guarantee and to assure the quality. Typically, they are used by small-scale organic producers. That's how they came into existence. And they are based on the participation of stakeholders. So it's assurance system is most of the cases a certification system where it's the stakeholders, so the producers, together with consumers, but also with other local actors, that comes together and they discuss and agree and define how the whole certification system should look like. So this means that so these actors are actually the owner of the system. So this is one of the very important characteristic of PGS. It means that this participatory governance, an example of how participatory governance can be adapted to quality assurance, but they are much more than only a tool for assuring quality or certification, because they are based on this social network and the exchange between the actors. They are actually much more. So maybe just a few words regarding the differences between third-party certification and PGS. So as you know, for what concerns organic certification, third-party certification is the dominant form of guarantee assurance systems. Third-party certification is a professional activity. It's based on it's based on international norms. It's based on the current market system. So it's a service that is provided, and and it's a system that gives access to international markets. PGS instead is most of the time done voluntary, even though many PGS initiatives then they put in place a certain system of fees to guarantee sustainability, financial sustainability over time. And yeah, one of the main differences is that it's based on participation. So, and while the third-party certification is an external, independent person that come to visit, to inspect your farm. They are, most of the cases, they are not recognized by the government, even though we have across the world around 10, 15 countries where PGS are currently recognized in organic regulation. And they are mostly taught and developed for regional markets and local markets. So another important things that I would like to share with you is are the key elements that are at the base of each PGS. So basically every PGS initiative is different in the sense that, as I said, it's the local stakeholders that decide how they want to implement the system. So every PGS initiative will be different and locally adapted. However, all these PGS initiatives shared these common elements that are at the grassroots, at the foundation of all these initiatives, which is the share, and these elements are the shared vision, so the aspiration, the bigger picture, the principles that the PGS initiative with all its members want to achieve, and this goes beyond organic production. It's something that touches very different dimensions, social interaction, justice, social justice, equity, economic and social sustainability. So it's much broader than the agroecological dimension. They are, as we say, participatory guarantee systems, so they are based on participation. All the actors needs to be involved and decide how the system will work. Such system to work needs to be transparent, so all the procedure in place needs to be needs to be understood and easily accessible by all the members. Horizontal, it's a democratic structure where there is equal power among the members. Trust and learning process. Learning process is also a very important aspect because, and with this I think I will conclude because I guess I have already spoken more than 5 minutes, but one of the important things or characteristic things of PGS is the way the assurance system is done, the verification is done. So this is done through not an inspection as is done in the third-party certification where you have an external person coming to your farm, but one of the tools is using a peer review, so having producers together with consumer visiting another member of the initiative, and this is a way through which you can enhance a learning process among the members of the PGS, which are also the members of your community. And this learning process actually unfolds through other steps of the PGS life. So already setting up a PGS initiative by itself, it's a great and learning process.
Indeed, I agree with you, Fede. Sorry.
Very well. Yes. So yeah, I guess my 5 minutes are finished.
Yes, so to recap, what you say is very important, and we see that everything that has the word participatory in it has the ability to become a very strong tool. Now, I would like to pass on and ask people about their experiences with PGS. And I would like to ask Gael and Christophe to tell us from their experience being in operating in national networks, why did they see that there was a need to start a PGS, and how they went about doing it. But first, let's start from the why. Why is it so important? Why is it a good thing to include PGS in a CSA or a CSA network? As I see Christophe already on the video. Christophe, would you like to tell us your view? And I see that are you sharing your screen? No.
No, hello. No, ladies first. I will leave Gael to start and I'll continue.
Okay, then. So, Gael?
Yep.
Are you ready to start? That was
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm participating more as an urgency member rather than from my own network because I participated in the research. I'm working on the Eating Craft project too. So the first thing I would like to remind is what is CSA? Based on the European CSA declaration, CSA is a direct partnership based on the human relationship between people and one or several producers, whereby the risks, responsibility, and rewards of farming are shared through a long-term binding agreement. So there is not one single CSA model. There are many different ways of doing CSAs, but this is our common ground. That's something we share between all the people throughout Europe, and this definition is also used outside of Europe. People recognize themselves in this definition. So as Federica said, some important things in PGS are a shared vision, transparency, an agreed upon decision-making process that is horizontal between consumers and producers, trust, a very active participation of everybody, and also a long-term commitment. So these are the points that we share and why we thought it was important to see how PGS and CSA could work together. So there are 4 objectives of CSA network that can be directly linked to PGS. So it would be popular education, meaning education, peer-to-peer education, rather than very formal one. There's also the possibility to go through certification, an improvement of the practices, because PGS offers some tools that are very helpful for the CSA groups to improve what they're doing, or how do you analyze the way you're working and what should be enhanced or what should be changed, and also the idea of quality assurance. But there is by no way an easy to adapt PGS for CSA model that would be so easy to replicate, but rather some interesting experiments on which to build some knowledge and could be inspiring. So that's my giving the floor to Christophe, because then he could give us some example from what they've been doing in Belgium.
Yeah, thank you, Gael. And please leave your screen because I don't have something to share for this part. And actually, I would like to react on the 4 objectives of CSA networks linked directly to PGS, because why we in Belgium and in the CASAP network, we decided to develop a PGS is not originally for certification, because most of our producers, of the producers in the network are already certified, and so we thought this was not the first or the main reason to include PGS. It's more the 3 others. And let's say in the popular education, I would like to include, for example, the mutual understanding of the different realities. Usually, at least in Belgium, in the GAZAP network, the eaters, the members of the CSA are usually urban people, and the food is coming from more rural areas. And so there is a real disconnect. And one of the reasons to develop a PGS was to improve this mutual understanding through a structured interaction which PGS provides. So one of the main objectives, therefore, was improving the mutual understanding between eaters and producers. The second, also, we know many or most of the peasants, the farmers, the producers, they're working quite alone when they're on their field. And although they know the other producers of the network, they never really interact on the field with their colleagues. And PGS provides, again, a structured way for this interaction, and this creates the possibilities for new or improved collaboration and improvement of the trust, the overall trust between producers of what others are doing. Because you might have, at least in a country like Belgium, which is very small, some impression sometimes between farmers that they are a little bit in competition between themselves. The fact of knowing better what the others are doing and why they're doing it and where they're doing it allows to take out this impression of he is another one to, oh, we are part of something which is larger than just my farm and my CSA. We are part of a larger network community within which trust can be built. The third part, because PGS is very often oriented towards producers, we think it is, and this is what we are trying to implement, it is also a very important tool to improve the practices in the different groups. Each group, when you enter into a long-term binding agreement, as Gael just presented in the CSA, each group functions a little bit differently. And it is important from time to time on a yearly basis or on a 2-year basis to have the opportunity to rethink of why are we doing these sort of practices and how do they fit within our CSA model. And so this improvement of practice is very much valid as well as for the producer, as well as for the groups. And of course, the last point is quality insurance. We want to be sure that both the groups and the producers are acting within the trusted and the common vision. And this common vision, and I would like to here go back to what Federica said, is not only on agronomical practices, it is also on a lot of other things. And it is also on biodiversity, it is also on local resilience, it is also on the work satisfaction, the participation satisfaction, on revenue, which are things which are difficult to discuss, specifically what is a fair and equitable revenue. And PGS allows the discussion to be held within a trusted and confidential manner. And this really helps the network, but also the producers and the groups to improve their practices and to better, to improve their partnership and the understanding between one and the other on what actually can make a difference, both for the members and for the producers. And this is really the objective of in developing a PGS within our GAZAP network. I'll close here.
Thank you, Christophe. Very important points from all of you so far. I think it would be nice to hear from Francois, his experience, because until now we've been talking about bigger structures. We're talking about national networks, or in the case of PGS around the world, even, you know, the equivalent of certification bodies. Francois, could you tell us why is PGS important for a single CSA, for a single AMAP? What is the connection between the two?
Yes, well, it's quite the experience we have in France. Sorry, I'm trying to share the screen. Okay, it's coming. Well, the experience we have in order to put into practice PGS at a CSA, a single CSA scale, is that we at all need a network to build the common vision and to build the tools. For example, in my AMAP, in my CSA, when we discovered the PGS, we had all to learn, and it is thanks to the regional networks, so les AMAP de Provence, as you can see here, which is one of the different network member of the national network being MIRAMAP in France. In the presentation, there are different information about les AMAP de France, but I won't focus on it a lot. I'm going fast onto the process of improvement of practices. With the visit of participatory assessments. Well, thanks to the network, we had the possibility in my CSA and also with other CSA. It's quite necessary to have a little number of CSA in order to make a peer review. To have different farmers, for example, here, producer of another AMAP, and in the better way, experienced producers that know all the particularity of being a producer in AMAP, and the farmer visited. And also, AMAPiens are the members of AMAP. So, a new word invented to qualify the member of the French CSA. And also, it seems that to have a facilitator of the visit, an employee or volunteer of the network is important, but not mandatory according to the objective. If the objective is most popular education, well, it's quite different. While when it is improvement of practices, which may involve to accompany the farmer or the group if it needs to improve its practices in respect to the framework reference. In France, the framework reference is the charter of the AMAP. So you need all this procedure and numerous skills given by the network, and as the experience showed us in les AMAP de Provence, the network of southeast of France, it works better when you have a network approach at all, in spite of all. And for that, well, we have to distinguish two kinds of visit. The welcome visit, the start of a partnership. When the AMAP, the CSA begin, it's not the same as when the CSA is existing for since, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So as you can see, there is a start of the PGS when the person of the CSA ask for the network to do something if it needs the tools, for example, the questionnaire, the objective contract, because when you do the visit, so step 2, and the questioning on the farm and on the AMAP, you need the questionnaire and the grid to analyze what is happening on the farm and how the CSA group operates. For instance, is the farmer using pesticide? In the AMAP charter, it's not mandatory to be organic certified, but you mustn't use pesticide and chemicals. So it is a big problem if the farmer uses them. And other problems are less important. For instance, if the group has a difficulty to have a good organization in logistics, well, it may be more interesting for them to improve that, but it's less critical than the use of pesticide, of course, in the AMAP charter. So the group can analyze the situation by itself thanks to the tool, but in an approach more popular education and easy improvement of practice. If there is a need of accompanying or something like quality assurance, sometimes the network, as the AMAP charter has a legal value as it exists and it is released. In France, when a document like the AMAP charter is published, it's important that it is respected, even if there can be some discrepancy. But the network or the CSA has to take its responsibility and ensure that things are done to improve the practices. And sometimes, as I have just said, it is necessary to have an accompanying. So there are two situations, accompanying or not accompanying, according to the difficulty meted. If you need an accompanying, well, the network is also important. So there is some kind of exchange between the CSA and a committee, agricultural and ethics committee, which is a committee created by the regional association. I don't know if you see well, it is a CAGET in French. So Agricultural and Ethics Committee, Commission Agricole et Éthique in French. We have to study the critical point to validate, for example, the contract of objective. Contract of objective is very important. It is a tool where you can agree, so the CSA and the committee,
Okay.
steps to improve. For example, at the end of the year, the farmer should stop using pesticide. If it is complicated for it to stop at the end of the year, maybe you can do other measures, and in 2 years it will be possible, and so everybody will be will be a win-win approach. And for that, using the advices of an experienced producer is very useful for the farmer and for the CSA.
Okay, Francois.
Yes.
Are you, I mean, we're trying to keep to the time frame.
Yes.
So I just want to remind you that you have already overstepped the limit. So if you can sum up.
Okay. I had said what was essential.
Okay. Francois?
Yes,
No?
there's a little problem to stop sharing the screen.
That's okay. So, so until we sort this out, Francois has already taken us into the nitty-gritty of the thing. So I'm gonna go right to Christophe, and Francois tried to tell us some things about how Miramap is doing the PGS visits and assessments. I didn't want to go so far in so much detail. I would like to ask you to share your experience in setting up a PGS system for the Gazap network. But just give us the main details. How do you do things? And again, please try to respect the time.
Okay, so just to be clear, thank you, Jenny. How did we set up the system, or how does it function?
The steps to create, how it functions, and how does the peer-to-peer review happen. This is an introductory webinar. We will be able to give people more information about this issue from the urgency website at a later stage. So now we're trying to focus on the main principles and the main, connection and how you do things on a step-by-step basis.
Okay, maybe I'll try to, can I share my screen so that we'll stop?
Yes, please. I think if you share your screen, then automatically it stops sharing everybody else's. So.
Okay. So screen one, share, and.
Okay. Yes, we're seeing your screen now.
You're seeing my screen and it should change. Yes, it changed. Oh, voila. So, there's some rapid faster, but how to set up a PGS is actually going through the 6 elements that Federica presented. And the first one is the trust vision. So what we have as CSA, as GAZAP, as AMAP, and other CSAs, we usually have a charter. And so the charter is, let's say, our reference document on how to let's say, clarify the common vision, and then to, from it, develop maybe specifications. What will we look at within our PGS? What are the elements that we want to include? What is important? Why we're doing it? And so all these things are part of what I said already, and but also there's a process of developing that, and it takes time. I mean, in Belgium, it took time because we started from our charter. We went back to groups of eaters and producers, farmers, and with them, and with all the information coming from everywhere, and you see IFOAM, you see Nature et Progrès, you see the other AMAPs, the one that Francois just presented, but also other events like reflection on the food sovereignty, the Nyeleni meeting, etc., etc. All that influenced our thinking and influenced the way we organized our meetings in order to mash up and to adapt the PGS to our reality. But very rapidly we said, hey, it's nice to meet, but it's even nicer to, I'm just trying to go down, okay. It's even nicer to test it immediately, and very rapidly after a few meetings on the specifications, we went to the field. We said, okay, let's try, let's experiment. What could be a farm visit? What could be a discussion within a group? And we built while doing. That was our way. Others can have a more structured way to build their PGS, but this is the way we developed it. And what is our PGS process is very similar to what François explained. So there's some things that you do before, and here I mentioned field visit as the central element. But the field visit is also a participatory meeting with the group. So it's not only the producer, it's also the discussion with the group. So there are a few things to do before, and you have to simplify and to make people start reflecting on what will be discussed within the PGS. And so there are two main tools that we're using for that. One is a questionnaire that we send to the producer for him to prepare on a number of elements. It's more or less the identity card of the farm, so that is written, and we don't need to go while doing the visit. We don't need to go in all the details on all that, because there are some things that are important to know, but maybe not important to discuss. So that is let's say the first form. The second one is something we send both to the producer and to the groups of that farmer. It is a questionnaire based on a questionnaire from France, again, as inspiration, saying, okay, how do you farmer, or how do you, member of a GAZAP, of a CSA, how do you evaluate your own partnership with your producer or with your groups? The idea is not to get an answer and to compile all those answers, but it's to prepare the people that will participate in the visit on what are the elements I should know about. And not all members of a CSA group are doing the visit. Only a few, one or two per CSA group, participate in the visit. Therefore, it is important that there is a reflection within the group on, okay, how do we evaluate collectively? So everybody is able to do it for himself, but also generate a discussion within the group. And I think it is very important. Those documents, let's say the identity card, that document is shared before the visit with all the visitors. And that is quite important for people to prepare themselves. And then we go to the visit, and the visit takes about 3 hours if it is well managed. And so the tools that are used is the questionnaire that I mentioned before, which explains the identity card of the farm. One tool which I find very important is a confidentiality commitment. It means that everybody that participate in the participatory assessment in the visit agrees that the visit creates a trusted environment where there is no taboo, where everything can be discussed, and where the intention is to improve the understanding and not to judge. And that is essential. So everybody signs this before the visit. And I think it creates a very specific state of mind for both producers and eaters and CSA members. During the visit, we usually try to have at least, as François explained, at least one other producer from the same field. So if we're visiting a vegetable grower, we try to have another vegetable grower to participate in the visit, at least, but there could be more. If there is more, there is more interaction. And the visit is richer. This is our experience. Those are the tools we're using. And there are two important tools for me as well. One is this spider diagram, which shows the various thematics that we collectively decided to include within our PGS. So as I said earlier, there's not only the agronomic part, but there's a global look at the partnership between the farmer and his groups, but also the partnership between the farmer and his own environment. So local resilience, circularity, territorial development, knowledge and practice sharing, etc., etc. And as I said, we look at work satisfaction, and always we end up looking really at the details of the producers, consumers solidarity, which includes the quality and the diversity of the products, but also the fair and equitable revenue and the modality of negotiation of price, for example, within the partnership. This spider diagram is for me very important because it shows the variety of things that can be discussed within a partnership, and therefore it also clarifies why we're not going for certification in the organic label definition, because we want to have a look at a much larger reality. And we have a similar spider diagram, a bit smaller, for the groups. And during the visit, I distribute these two spider diagrams in the beginning so that every visitor, both producer and CSA member, can ask the questions during the visit which are related to these elements. But if some elements are not discussed during the visit, at the end of the visit, we have at least 1 hour of discussion. And that is where those thematics often come up again, and especially those thematics that have not been discussed during the field visit. These are a few photos of our visits where you can see a lot of interaction are happening between eaters, producers, and the visited producer. This is, and of course you can have also some good food if it's the right season. And this is the last step of the visit, and it is this discussion where we go through in details using those spider diagrams on, okay, where are we now? What is the current situation, and how could we collectively improve? And I think that is a very, it is an essential part, because it allows both the producer and the eaters to take stock of what they, what has been seen, what has been discussed, and look towards the future. Small things have been changing immediately from those discussions, like improved communication. We know farmer within a CSA has a lot of responsibilities, both the producer, he needs to communicate, he needs to sell, he needs to deliver, etc., etc. And within these discussions, one thing that often came was that the communication was not up to the level expected from the consumers, from the eaters. But by simple interaction, simple new ways of improved communication have been decided within the visit already and put in place, and some are working since 2 years and have really improved the quality of the relationship between producer and consumer. The last part, and it's similar to the Cagette model that François explained, we do a visit report, which can be commented only by the people who visited. And then we have this meeting of the Cagette, we call it Commission SPG, PGS Commission, where we look at those reports and we look at what are the recommendations. We discuss. It is also an occasion to review a little bit if our process is being followed correctly and is bringing the benefits that I talked about in the in my earlier talk. And I'll finish my speech here. I hope you have questions.
Thank you, Christophe. It was very interesting. Now I would like to ask if anyone else from our panel has something to add to what has already been said by Francois and Christophe. And if not, then, then I would like to get on with the next question, which is, we're talking about participatory systems and community-supported systems. Both these things have something in the core that is the same, and that is human relations. We know, I see Christophe is already smiling, so as we all know, human relations are always a challenge. And so I would like to ask you, this is a question to all our panelists. Christophe, you're already here, so I'm looking you in the eye and I'm asking you, how are you dealing with human relation issues when it comes to decision making, when it comes to people perhaps not complying with things or conflicts arising? How is that aspect dealt with within a participatory guarantee system?
I think I partly already answered to that question by, I think by making every participant in the PGS sign this confidentiality commitment. At that moment during the visit, but we also do that again. I ask everybody to sign again when those that are participating in the PGS commission, where the decisions are being taken, because actually during the visit, it's more to take stock of the reality and to start thinking about where the partnership could go, for example, or what sort of evolution the participants are thinking about at that moment. The PGS Commission is where we really discuss and say, we really think this should evolve. And therefore, I also, during those meetings, ask everybody to sign this confidentiality commitment so that we can have this discussion at that moment and that we have a trust, a sort of in collective intelligence speech, they talk a membrane around the people so that the discussion can be held with benevolence, with a positive attitude, not judging, but trying to develop and trying to find a solution. So if someone comes with a critic, we say, we hear you, but you need to come with a proposal for a solution, and then we can evaluate. And we use these tools of sociocracy to manage these discussions in the best possible way. You can't avoid conflicts, but we try to avoid conflicts in the open or conflicts in writing. We try to have these meetings so that we can have a real discussion that is oriented towards constructive solutions.
Gianni, may I add something on that?
Yes, yes, please.
Yes. So, yeah, I wanted to add that, and it's something also that came out from Christophe's presentation, that PGS offer you a way to structure the relationship between the actors involved. And basically, I think what is very important in PGS and what can be very useful also for CSA initiatives is that you basically, from the beginning, you can create a kind of safety framework. So you define like how decision will be taken. You define how you will accept new member, how current member can leave the initiative, the group without actually damaging the group. and also actually how you can exclude members that are currently damaging the group. So you put in place in place a system that, as Christophe said, will not is not done for avoiding conflicts. Conflicts will always rise. It's also healthy, you know, that in the life of a group, some conflicts arise, but it's a way that will help you to deal with the situation and to solve it in a way that your organization, your initiative will survive and be strengthened, actually. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Fede, for this. Does Gaël or Francois have anything to add on the issue of decision making and the human factor? No? Okay, so then. Yes?
Yes.
No?
Just,
Francois.
yes, just I agree with the difficulty of managing human relationship. And I remember of an example when we needed to separate the visit of the farm and the question asked to the member of the CSA group, the Amapien, in order to have other point of view and to have answers we shouldn't have if the farmer and the Amapien were there. And the Amapien didn't dare to answer all the questions as they should, because there was the wife of the farmers in the same room. So after the assessment, they come back to us and say, well, we didn't say that and that about the farmer because the wife of the farmer was in the same room. So we have to think of everything. It is very holistic approach, even in the way you put into practice the PGS. So it's difficult, I think, if all the consumers and all the farmers and all the employees, the facilitators of the visit are not well trained. So I think one thing was very interesting in the network Les AMAP de Provence was a facet of experiment. 10 years ago, there were multiple experimental PGS, very interesting for everybody to discover, to understand that assessment can be win-win, can be have a popular education advantage, and it's not in just inquiry, just to check if the practice are good or not. So it's very important, I think, that too.
Thank you, Francois. Okay, if no one has anything else to add, we are right on time with our 1 hour schedule. And I would just like to recap very quickly. We've been hearing about the main aspects of PGS and how it can work together with CSA. We've seen that PGS in itself is a very empowering tool. I think anything with the word participatory in it actually ends up being very empowering if used right. We've seen that it can motivate consumers to be part of the food that they eat. We've seen that it can create a knowledge exchange network between farmers. And we've seen that it can actually go beyond organics. I will use this phrase. It's very commonly used for PGS because it's a continuous effort to always get better. So on that note, I would like to ask Federica, as part of IFOAM as well, to tell us a couple of things on the advocacy aspect of PGS, to tell us a few things about the importance of PGS in system change. Fede?
Yes, so I'm going also to show my video so you can see me.
Finally.
Okay. So in terms of advocacy, well, so it's a bit, I would say, So we are experiencing actually a change in trends, in the sense that IFOM started to work on PGS since the early 2000s. Basically, we didn't came up with the definition that I was mentioning at the beginning, but that was also a participatory process, in the sense that in the early 2000s, we organized a workshop on alternative certification in Brazil. And is in that occasion that actors coming from all over the world, they came together and they realized that back home they were putting in place similar system for assuring quality, engaging producers and consumers, working at local level with local communities, and there where the term PGS basically was born. And back then there were very few initiatives that were doing PGS. Now, more than 15 years after, we have actually a very big increase of PGS initiatives all over the world. And so we counted last year, I think, almost 300 PGS initiatives, and with countries like India that are now supporting development of PGS. We have over 140,000 farmers certified. So let's say that PGS is getting quite popular. And I think, as we saw today, there are many different ways why PGS is needed, and why local actors are engaging in this type of system. So this speaks by itself, I think, no? That certification, third-party certification, I'm talking from the perspective of the organic movement, is in many cases not perceived as enough. Regulations are looking mostly at the agronomic aspect, but they most of the cases they forget about the economic and social dimension. And and producers and consumers want to be more engaged and have the ownership of this system. So that's why we advocate for PGS, not only as a certification tool, but also as a way of building alternative food systems and change actually the food system in general. Yes. Does it answer your question, Jenny?
Yes, Fede, thank you very much. Now, if no one else from the panel has something to add to what has already been said, I would like to open the floor to questions from the people that have been patiently watching us all this time. Does somebody from the panel have something to add? No? Then, guys, we're opening the floor to you for questions or clarifications. I would just like to add that...
Hello, can I speak?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Liliana from Portugal.
Hello, Liliana.
I was at BioFac Fair this year, and I would like to ask a question to Federica, because I was there and I went to IFOM stand to ask about participatory guarantee system. And they told me that this type of system is more centered in Africa, India, and not in Europe. That's what they told me about. But why just in that type of countries it's more used and not in Europe? And why the information is like that? Why? And they just give me a brochure that I already seen it in Greece. It was the same. And that's just it. They just told me that, and I didn't really understood why is it like that.
Shall I answer straight away, Jenny, or you want to take more
Yes,
questions?
yes, no, yes, please.
Yeah, so Liliana, okay, I think they gave you a kind of incorrect answers. Not all of my colleagues are working on PGS, so it might be that they, yeah, you met with someone that has no, yeah, it's not working on this topic. So, I mean, in the sense, like if you look at the strictly at the numbers, it's true that the highest development that we have, it's actually not Africa, but it's Latin America and Asia, Southeast Asia, and in Europe. But in Europe, we have Nature Progrès, for example. It's PGS in France, which it's one of the first PGS to be created worldwide. It has over 2,000 members, of which around 900 are producers. So, and they are spread all over France. So, and they did a very, let's say, seminal work on PGS. They were the pioneers of the organic movement in Europe, and what happened to them, I think it has also something about why maybe in Europe it just is starting to take a certain speed of development early now. And I mean, I think the European regulation on organic farming, it really played quite an important role in this. So since PGS mainly were born from the organic movement, if you look at them historically. Then when in Europe in the 90s, the organic regulation, the European organic regulation came into existence, a system like PGS were forbidden to certify organic products. So that's why Nature Progrès, for example, they are the pioneer of the organic movement. They started to do organic in the 60s. Actually, their organic standard, were approved by the government back then. But then after the organic regulation came into place, they were not recognized as a certification body because they were not working according to this impartiality provision. So now all the producers, they are not allowed to call their product organics, even though they are more organic of some producers that have the logo. Anyway, to say that, I wanted to say that because I think regulation played a certain role in the speed of PGS development, but it's not true that in Europe there is no development. We hear it today, and we have few initiatives in Italy, some initiative in Spain, some will come in Hungary, and probably Czech Republic and Greece. So, yeah.
Indeed, and I think that it's no coincidence that the same thing is happening with CSA as well. There is a very big exponential, I would say, growth in the last few years. And I think that there's, I mean, many other factors contributing to that. Thank you, Fede, for that. Is there another question?
I would like to ask something. I'm Vasilios Bellis. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Oops. Yes, Vasily, thank you very much.
I would like to ask if there is a need for a supportive organization who will offer support and coordination and animation to the whole system in order to be alive, and how is it paid, if there is a need for this. And the second, I saw in the spider diagrams some factors like soil, like environment, health, and so on. are there, yes, water, soil, biodiversity, are there some indexes calculated in a way, or these are estimations by the consumers or the eaters or the farmers or the people participating? Is there some measures for the soil, some analysis, or it is based on simple observations or estimations of the participants?
That's an interesting question. I know there's various answers to that. Would Christophe perhaps or Francois like to answer the question?
I can, if Francois, and then Francois may, oh, Francois, you can go.
Well, I think you explained the things earlier. I think in France it was important to develop the frame, or the means. The problem I think we had in Les Amas de Provence was the difficulty to have a long-lasting vision and to ensure the means to coordinate and to drive the PGS. So, well, it's not easy to answer. You need to have, I think, a long-term vision when developing the PGS and to ensure the means and the training of the different people. Training is very important. I don't know in Belgium if you have the same kind of answer.
Thank you, Francois.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think you need, Vasilis, you need resources, and these resources, for the moment, for example, we were able to develop PGS now because we had some subsidies to develop it, and we are coming towards the end of these subsidies, and that creates tension within the network to say, okay, how are we going to be able to continue? And but the willingness is clearly there, and actually PGS is becoming so central in our functioning that we're trying to see how the network coordination, sorry for the noise, how the network coordination can really take it on and make it live, because that's the only long-term position that we really have. So you need resources. For the moment, we don't ask to the participants any payment for participation in the PGS because we had received some subsidies. Nature et Progrès, they have this functioning of PGS since 1968, and it is based on an annual payment in order to be registered, like with the Nature et Progrès mention, as they call it, not a label, but sort of. The producers and the participants, the Nature et Progrès members, they pay the membership fee, and the membership fee is partly paying for the PGS running. The second, and it is also important to have this long-term vision, because PGS, as we say, is a evolution process, and therefore you need to be able to have an administrative follow-up to say, okay, 2 years ago we came and we visited and we said this was this improvement that was planned. How has it evolved? So you need to have a follow-up. For that, you need a structure. And I link this to your other question on the spider diagrams. For the moment, we don't have an index calculated. I've tried to put that in place, but actually the reality is that every every field is different, and it is very difficult to assess it in comparison with others. However, it is possible to assess it, to register it, and then when you're coming the next year or 2 years later, then to use the previous result and verify how it has evolved. And there's been a number of experiments, not only in Belgium, but I think in many other countries as well, to how to characterize a soil, how to, you have le test à la bêche, I don't know how, the spades test, for example, for soil evaluation, which can be repeated the year after, etc. But we have not yet gotten involved in that. We think it would be interesting, but it needs another level of management and of capacity for following up, because it's not the photograph you're taking at one single moment that is important, at least in my vision of PGS. It is the evolution that you can see between one visit and the next one.
Thank you, Christophe. That's very important. And if I may, I don't have the moderator here, but I would like to just use 1 minute to say something on the subject. I think that the fact that we're talking about participatory things and things that have an evolutionary aspect, just like there's no specific recipe to set up CSAs, I think the same goes for PGS as well. So a lot depends on, you know, what this group of people that come together, what they want to achieve. We've been mentioning here Nature Progrès. It's been mentioned by quite a few of the panelists. And I just want to make clear for the people that are just learning about PGS through this webinar, that what Nature Progrès does is significantly different than we have been discussing in this webinar, in the sense that here we have been talking about how we use this tool, PGS, within the system of CSA, within the CSA networks. However, because we've been mentioning organic certification as well, there is another possibility for PGS, which is to provide, I'm going to be very simplistic here in order to make sense. So it's let's say an equivalent to the third-party certification, and that's why Federica shared with us the similarities and differences between the two right from the start. So how Nature Progrès is organized is quite different. As you said, there's people paying fees, but then to understand that, we need to think of something similar to a certification body with maybe thousands of producers being involved, whereas in a CSA context, the numbers are much smaller, and we're talking about something that is less costly and probably more local. So again, things are very different. Thank you all. Is there a next question? No? Okay, then if that is the case, I'd like to ask the panelists if there is one last round of comments that they would like to make. Well, hang on, I see there's a couple of...
May I say something? It's Gabe speaking.
Yes, please.
That was very short. We spent a lot of hours working on this to see the connection between PGS and CSA. And we wrote some PowerPoint documents, and we wrote some documents that you can refer to where it's explained. And we also spend a lot of time connecting the thing and opting up, going from the case studies, the different ones we saw today, to a broader image. So also in the idea of not only a huge system such as the French one can take part in this, but also other people. So people could look in those documents and find what they could use. Maybe it's not the whole process they would use, but maybe it's only the part of educating consumers they could use, or improving the practices, or something they could find useful, but maybe not the whole picture at the beginning. Everything is step by step.
Yes, thank you for that, Gael. And I think perhaps since you started talking about smaller sizes, could you perhaps explain, within a single CSA, what aspects of PGS we see there? For example, the farm visit that is the farm visit that is a traditional thing to do in a CSA. This is a PGS aspect, no?
Yes, they are. One of the things we've done also is to look at the tools that were developed within the PGS and see how we could use them. So the idea of doing a visit, and how do you do this visit, and how do you make it useful? Because sometimes you just visit a farm and say the farmer is cool, the place is nice, okay, let's go and work with him. But if you want to be more efficient, if you want to do it smarter way, then maybe it's useful to get through a formalized process. And somehow having a network is the level at which you can work on that. And you have some CSA that have been running for 40 years already, and they have much experience. So there are things that can be shared within a network and also within urgency, because we have so many different networks, so many different ways of working, that there's certainly somebody that has a good experience to share. So that's also something we've worked on, the idea of there are things you can do at the level of a CSA, but there are things that would be easier to set up if it's a network. Am I clear? Sorry, I try to give
Yes,
too many
you're
ideas.
very clear. Thank you very much, Gael. Now, so again, any comments or any questions from anyone? Okay, if not, then I would like to thank all of you for joining us today in this. Well, I hope it was very interesting for you, as it was for us. And I would just like to add that there's going to be material posted on this, perhaps later on, not now, but you will find material posted on the urgency website. You can see on your screen the project website. And you see on the right-hand side of the screen, it talks about another project called Eating Craft, which is another Erasmus where we specifically talk about PGS and CSA, and you will find information on the urgency website about both of these projects. Thank you very much to everyone, and have a good night.
Good night.